Welcome, and thank you very much for coming to this session today. I'm so excited to be here and to share with you some of the projects that Cisco is doing in connecting what I want to call the stars. And I kind of use that analogy because how many of you are familiar with SETI? The guys that go out there, have the great big radars that look for intelligent life on other planets. And that's kind of what we're doing in the world of social media today. We have our radars trained on the great big wide universe, and we're hoping beyond all hope that there is some signal from someone out there that says, yep, I want your product and I love what you do. It's that one signal and that patterning for that one signal that sort of is what we're trying to figure out how to harness and bring back into Cisco. So I'm going to go through a couple of things today, but I spent a great deal of time in my life teaching, so I always like to start with, what you're going to get out of this. I'm hoping that this is what you're here for. At the end of this presentation, I'm hoping that you understand a little bit more about how Cisco, the leading internet company, employs listening, that listening capability, not only in its marketing, but in some of its services and its other product development activities. Because we believe that there's a lot of action going on out in the universe, so to speak, and that we have to be attuned to it in order to take advantage of market transitions. And that's very important to us. Secondly, we're going to talk about a little bit about how marketing analytics, which I'm responsible for, is applied to help challenge the status quo in our demand-driven marketing organization. And I say that because the status quo is, okay, got to get a lead, we got to get marketing, got to pay for themselves. That demand-driven kind of capability we're looking at in a different way and trying to make sure that we're harnessing all of that social media and bringing it to our structured data. And then how Cisco is experimenting with applying unstructured conversations to structured data. And quite frankly, we're neophytes at this like most everyone else. And so if you have a great answer for something, by all means share it with us. Because we're just beginning to look at things like sentiment analysis and what we do with that and how we apply it to information that we know about our customers. And then finally, what does all of these new analytic processes have to do with where we are today, and what existing processes that we have are going to have to change? Because in this world, the one thing that we are sure of, besides taxes, which you paid this last weekend, is that change is inevitable. John Chambers is very fond of saying that average is no longer what will survive in business. That in order to survive 2 to 3 years out, you must be above average. And to be able to build a great company, you have to be extraordinary. So what we're trying to do is capture as much as possible the change that happens. Now, first a word from our sponsor. I have to sort of tell you a little bit about Cisco. The vision for Cisco is that we really truly want to change the way people work, live, play, and learn. And we believe that the internet, at the heart of all of that, makes that possible. Now, interestingly enough, our strategy to shape that future of the internet is to create unprecedented value with the products that we sell to our customers. But more importantly, to make our customers successful. I think what's really important here, and you'll sort of see this throughout my presentation because I sit in strategic marketing and probably am more influenced by this than other organizations, in that our strategy is to take advantage of market transitions. That means if the market is moving from not having the internet to the internet, we want to be there. If the market is moving from voice voice and data combined, or voice, data, and video combined, we have to be there first. So we're constantly looking for innovations in those spaces, constantly looking for the market transition. To do that, we're starting to use what's happening on the social web to tell us where those transitions might be. Okay? And just so you know, please, if you have a question, ask me during the presentation, so make sure that you get as much out of this as what you want to get from this presentation for sure. Now, just to explain a little bit about the strategic marketing organization at Cisco. And I do this because this is a fairly unique organization. In most large companies, market intelligence and competitive intelligence usually exist in different organizations. And customer intelligence exists someplace entirely different as well. But at Cisco, what we thought is that in order to be able to really harness the power of information and intelligence, you needed to put all three of those in one organization. So we have competitive intelligence, market intelligence, and I manage customer and influencer intelligence as part of strategic marketing. That's important because every once in a while, when we look at customer intelligence, we also need to know what the competitors are doing in that market space. Or we need to understand how large the market is for our customers, or what kinds of things our customers are saying in different markets than we've been in before. As part of the customer and influencer intelligence group, I have several organizations. I have one organization that deals with foundational data. And I always say this, I was speaking with someone before this meeting. My team spends between 75 and 80% of their time getting the data together in order to do a project. That's kind of reasonable from what I've heard other people talk about, but why should we do that? You know, designing an analytic environment or a data source for analytics is much different than designing an analytic resource for reporting or operational considerations or tactical concerns. So we have got to make sure that our data is just right. I have a group that does that. I have a very small group of about 6 full-time employees that do advanced analytics. They're econometric statisticians who would have been very much at home at this conference. You know, they're the guys who understand all the statistical stuff that goes into the modeling. They do the propensity to buy models. They do optimization models. They do forecasting and predictive modeling. They do all kinds of modeling as is brought to bear on the marketing consideration. And then I have a team that has started to look at the web information and specifically look and listen to the influencers in our marketplace. The top press reporters, the top analysts. What are they saying about us? Is what they're saying about us good, bad, or indifferent? Is what they're saying about us making a difference in the marketplace? So that group is highly geared toward looking at sentiment analysis and then attaching it to some of our information that we have about our customers. So I also have a very small group that does what I call incubation. They take projects that no one thinks are going to work or projects that are just getting started, and they try and nurture them to the point that they can become operational in somebody's organization. Always with data and analysis at the heart of the core of the projects that they take on. So, here's the disclaimer. Up front, Cisco is on a journey. Have we arrived yet? No. Are we still at the station? No, we've sort of taken off a little bit. Excuse me. But we are on a journey, and we will continue this journey going into the future. So stay tuned. This is not, probably not the last you will hear about Cisco in this world. And our process for what we do is in no way definitive. The numbers that you're going to see on this presentation have all been changed to protect the innocent or the guilty, whichever way you want to look at it. And the charts are combinations of lots of people's work across Cisco. So I want to make sure that that's clear as we start to present what we have here. So if I have any HP competitors, you're not going to gain anything from looking at these charts. And finally, all the HP guys out there, finally, we are still learning. And we're hoping that we can entice you to help us learn. If you have questions or information, by all means, let me know, because we would love to learn from you as well. So, the agenda today is very simple. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some listening projects that we have going on in Cisco. I'm going to talk to you about our efforts to harmonize some of the listening that we have and some of the things that we've done on our websites. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we think is next. Did anybody else have any other thing they wanted to talk about? Just checking. Okay. Now, Cisco, quote, listens. The process of listening, social media listening, is the process of monitoring and responding to mentions that are related to a business and that occur in social media. I pull that directly off the web. That's exactly what listening is. And I think what's important in this definition is that listening is not just the monitoring, it's the responding as well. Because if I'm in a conversation with you and I'm listening, and how many of you have this with your girlfriends, your boyfriends, or your husbands and wives? Yeah, I'm listening. There's a difference between listening and hearing, you know? That's what I always tell my son. You didn't quite hear me. I know you're listening, but you didn't quite hear me. Because if you hear someone, you respond, and the conversation begins. And that's what we're trying to do with social media. We're trying to engage in the conversation. We're doing it with our customers, but more importantly, we're doing it with our partners and our channels. And this is something very important to remember about Cisco's business model. 90% of everything that we sell at Cisco goes through a partner or a channel. That means something very important to us, and I am absolutely green with envy with all the people who have direct access to their customers, all the people who can call their customers or go to the website and they have all this wonderful information, like the Googles or the Facebooks of the world, or even the Apples. Wow, how wonderful. What we have to do is constantly depend on our partners to provide us that information, or do abnormal things to get around that sort of channel to be able to listen to what our partners are saying. That sort of puts a crimp in the way that we actually listen. So we're trying very hard to figure out where the best place to engage our partners and channels is so that what we hear is very clear to us. Okay? And then we do it via the internet, but more importantly, I think I want to make sure that you understand that listening happens in a lot of places. It doesn't always happen in the social media world. We ask our customers a lot of things. We give them surveys at events. We do customer sat surveys with them and ask them what they think about us. We do forums where we invite them in to tell us what they think. And what we found over the years is that everybody's got an instrument like that, and everyone's talking to a customer, and they're asking, guess what? The same questions. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we have somewhere inside Cisco that brings that listening together and begins to get the answers to those questions in one place so that we can explore exactly how we can respond to the customer in a more unified way. So, listening creates, just like this is sort of the big data definition, creates a volume and a variety of data at an ever-increasing velocity. One of the projects I'm going to talk about this morning, you'll see that velocity issue sort of figures in pretty well into it as well. So, to begin with, just recently we've pulled together a couple of organizations, at least we've identified them, and we're collaborating today like we have never done before. Those organizations begin with something we call a Listening Services Center of Excellence. That is a center that's been pulled together in the customer operations area, the guys that do operational research and things like that. They pulled all of this together, but these guys are concentrating on collecting all of the information where we go out and ask people questions, predominantly customer sat surveys. We do on an average of customers, with our customers, we survey not only when they interact with us transaction by transaction, but also we survey them twice a year, once out to generally to customers that are our top customers, and then another very full sample of our entire customer base to find out what they think about how we are serving them. The important thing to remember there is that our customer sat number drives how much money we as individuals make at Cisco. So that number is very important to us. The customer sat number, if we don't hit it, our bonuses go down. Okay? So we have a customer listening center that aggregates all that information and pretty much the offline information, what we call customer advocacy groups, all kinds of groups. They gather the information, they're starting to look at how they analyze it and how they integrate it back into the organization. The objective for this center is to be a sort of a change agent for the enterprise, to become closer to our customers. And it helps to increase our own internal understanding of what's happening on the internet and the power of social media. But it also demonstrates to our customers and to our stakeholders how important it is to listen to what our customers say. Now, at the same time, there is inside the marketing organization a listening network as well. And this listening network includes only the internet. It's a social media listening capability. Very similar to what Dell Computers. Is there anyone here from Dell? We went to Dell to see your listening center. We set up one just sort of like it, where we can monitor on a daily basis all of the different activities, all the different comments from bloggers across the world as to what people think about Cisco. We also then take those comments, and if we see something that's negative or we see something that needs to be responded to, there is a network of subject matter experts that then have to respond to that activity across the company. So thank you, Dell, very much for helping us with that. We were very appreciative of the kind of guidance that we got in order to set that center up. Now, in addition to the Listening Center of Excellence and the Marketing Center of Excellence, which are collaborating together, one sort of offline information, one online, there is a huge support community that uses social media predominantly to provide support to our customers. And it is the largest community within Cisco. What I find very interesting about this community, and I engage with the people who manage this all the time, is that what we wanted to do is that we wanted to take advantage of watering holes where our customers go to that are not our watering holes. You know, there are places out there on the internet where people can get answers to their questions from our CCIEs. Those are Cisco certified internet engineers. Isn't that right, John? Is that what the CCIE is? Those guys sit out there who have the expertise out in the community. They're in our partner organizations. They're working for themselves. They're at universities. They're at schools. They can answer questions a lot of the times that our customers have long before our customer even gets to our support center. So it's beginning to save us hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to have our community respond to a customer before the customer gets really upset with the product that they have. So we are constantly monitoring that community. We are constantly looking at the number of visitors. We have a huge number of visitors in that community, almost 2 million a month now. And we're growing the mobile applications in that community as well so that people can constantly communicate. That means monitoring in a different way social media. That's not just turning it to the skies and looking at everything. That's monitoring very specific watering holes around the internet. And specifically against some of the social media users like Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. Those are the kind of places where we tend to see our customers go to. In addition, we have Cisco.com. We have a website where lots of people come. About 14 million unique visitors a month. Those are people who sometimes already know what they want from us, who could have gone into some of our customer support areas, or they're people who are just looking for what to find out about Cisco. You go there if you're doing a paper in your business class and you've got to figure out something about Cisco. You might go for a lot of reasons. But what we're starting to find out is that our customers don't always go there. They go to our support organizations, our support communities. Our prospects, however, do come there for the most part because they're seeking information. So they seek information at the root of the source, which is the Cisco.com site. And our social media gets amplified by extending out to other communities that are connected to Cisco.com. Okay, so when we put all of these together, we wanted to look at the business cases for why this would be important. And these are the 5 things that they support with the listening center. They supported in the business case. They wanted to identify support issues and increase the speed of resolution. That's what that support center does. They wanted to be able to identify product bugs and increase the speed of resolution for those product bugs. That's also what the support center does. But those things in green, identify sales leads and drive strategy and messaging for priority areas, those were things that marketing was mostly interested in. How do we actually identify people who are out there talking about us or coming to our website? How do we identify that they're ready to buy something from Cisco, that they might be ready to purchase? And then ultimately, all of this was to increase the number of advocates and influencers that we have, because advocates and influencers are very important in our business. And we wanted to make sure that we were monitoring them for a change in positive sentiment. How many of you have any idea at all what I'm talking about when I say sentiment analysis? Okay, good. Okay, great. Okay, so marketing's challenge was very simple. We kind of knew that Cisco.com had a lot of people coming to Cisco.com that were getting ready to buy, but we couldn't tell all the time who those people were. We can do things like get them to register. We can do things like look at how many, what they click on to download. We knew how to do all of that, but we wanted a different way to identify if we thought they were going to be ready to purchase or not. So we took on a challenge that said, we're going to listen with purpose, and the purpose being we're going to try to identify whether you are going to purchase or not. We're going to try and harmonize all the voices that we're going to hear out on the web to sort of bring together some of those things. And then we're going to get as fast as possible to the relevant data. In other words, we're going to try and identify who you are, what you want, and when you're going to purchase from us as soon as we can. And that is no small task, okay? And then we're going to act on what we hear, proving all the while to the stakeholders and the executives who were going, oh, it's just too fuzzy, that it was worth listening. So our very first project was very simple. And in the world that you guys have been listening to for the last day and a half, this is simple. This was very simple. This was no big operational research kind of project at all. We wanted to see if we could use what we call engagement score spikes to identify potential leads. Let's talk what an engagement score spike is. When you go to a Cisco website, we know you're there. So that's that activity registers in our data. So if you go more than once and all of a sudden it starts to spike, and we're recognizing your cookie come in, we consider that increased activity, okay? So what we thought was that, in our own little marketing minds, wow, if someone's coming to the website a lot, what are they doing? Are they looking for something? Are they checking us out because they're getting ready to buy HP? What are they doing on that site? The HP guys are going, yeah. What are they doing there? So we thought, well, we can make a hypothesis. We hypothesized that if you go to the website and you're showing an increase in activity, that there's probably some time in the near future when you might be looking to purchase. So what if we just sort of took a snapshot of that data and started to look at what could happen if we looked at people whose spikes went up? How long past that spike might they buy something? And this was really unsophisticated in that we took that section of data and we managed it so that we could identify the spikes and then related those spikes back to individual companies. Because guess what? Most companies that buy from Cisco don't have one person that comes to our website, they have 20. So we needed to make sure that all 20 of those people got captured in that spike so that the activity in the company got recorded the way it should be because they're trying to purchase something. And then we wanted to see, are contacts with higher spikes more likely to become leads than contacts with low spikes or no spikes at all? In other words, was it really valuable to know that somebody was spiking on your site? And do the contacts with higher spikes have a budget potential, a higher budget potential than those with lower spikes? Okay? You know, if you're looking and you're going to the web, and you guys who do this all the time, who have online commerce, I absolutely am very envious of you because you can do this and you know in a heartbeat that someone's going to buy because they either put it in their shopping cart or they abandon it or there's some other metric that you're using. But for us, they always have to go through a partner. So we didn't have this kind of information. Are the results of this pilot that we're going to do, or this sample, do we think they would be valid enough if we were to extend them to our different kinds of customer sets? So those are the questions that we sort of asked for our first project. And here are the results. Not all that great, so don't get real excited. The percent converted to leads, there was absolutely no difference in those guys with low spikes or high spikes or any spikes at all. No difference. The percent that converted to a lead that went on to purchase, no difference at all. The percent converted to a lead that was already engaged, no differences at all. But here was the real surprise. The average budget was higher for the guys who had low spikes than it was for the guys who had a lot of spikes. And we know that because we called them all. We did a telemarketing survey to all of them, and we asked them, how much was your budget when you came in there? How much are you going to spend? And guess what we found? We found that the guys that had little or no spikes had a whole lot more money than those guys that were out there constantly looking. I guess it's what women do, you know. We go, we look, we shop, we never buy.
How did you know who was supposed to vote?
That was a trick. That was a good trick. She asked, how did we know who to call? What we did is that we did a little exploratory telemarketing. We knew the company. If we had the address, if we had the URL for the person or the email address, then we usually had a phone number that we could associate with the company.
How did you know the company?
There are databases out there that will associate IP addresses to companies, and that's what we did. And we picked the companies, we did exploratory telemarketing into the company to find out who was, and I gotta admit, there were parts of that where it felt a little creepy. But, you know, we did what we had to do to get some of the information just to sort of prove. That's a good question. It's a very good question. Now, the percentage, no statistically significant difference between the spikes here. None with the leads, the people that were already engaged with us, because we asked, are you already engaged? And they said yes. And so there was no difference between those and the spikes they had on the site. The big statistical difference was the budget with the leads. And so we did a lot of soul searching and asked ourselves, what on earth is that? Why would that be that way? And we're not quite sure that we hit upon it. Why does that low spike appear to outperform the high spike? We thought, since we had taken a slice of the data, that possibly what we had done is that we had captured, again, that velocity issue. Time was moving really fast, and we held the data still, that it might have been moving so fast that we failed to recognize the velocity. That the people who had just started their conversations with us, had just started looking where their spikes were lower, were probably the ones that ultimately might become bigger purchasers someday, but because we statically looked at it at one slice in time, we may not have captured it. So we learned. We learned a lot, and what you'll see is that when I talk about where we're going next, we're applying some of that into what we're putting onto our site in the next couple of months. So we learned that the data snapshot captured those who would purchase, but would not necessarily been actively in the process of seeking information. High engagement spikes could have meant that inquiries were from competitive validation for another company's products. You know, they could have gone in and said, well, I've already made up my mind to buy HP, but my boss wants to know exactly why, so I'm looking for specifications on Cisco's router and switch. Could have been. We speculated. We needed to study. We also knew, as a result of this, that we needed to do a lot more studying with the digital pathways of our customers, more thoroughly, seize the opportunity to use the social media to seek patterns in their demand. In other words, we were trying to zero in a lot more on the pattern. So now what we're doing is that we're applying this information in unstructured conversations to structured data to try and produce insights for marketing and sales. I'm going to show you a little bit about some influencer communications that we do, some integration of metrics between structured and unstructured data, and then talk a little bit about how we related some different data sets. Not combining them, but how they can be related. And then finally, taking that project we just did into a new world, we're looking at engagement scoring on our site. Evaluating influencer communications drives accountability at Cisco. And I come, as you said in my introduction, my background is journalism. And when I was in the PR world, one of the things that we used to always measure, because we thought we were so technically great at this, is the number of inches in a newspaper column that you got mentions from your particular customer. Well, that doesn't work in today's world any longer. But you still have to hold PR departments accountable for what they are doing. So we're using the influencer communications to do exactly that. We have a dashboard that actually every quarter goes out and looks at the sentiment that customers have about Cisco. We look not only at whether they feel good or bad or neutral about us, but we also look at what our share of voice is amongst our competitors. So our top 300 traditional media guys, we look at that information from them. Our top 40 social media sites, we take information there. We look at what financial analysts and industry analysts all say about us. We combine it, and we do it not just in the United States, but in the major, we do it in Europe and we do it in Asia Pacific. And I will tell you, that's our biggest challenge, because the sentiment for Chinese is much different than the sentiment for French. You know, and how we manage that has become a really big it's a project for us to figure out how we do that one for sure. We also integrate our metrics. We look at our analysts and our media and our investors, and we start to look across all of those and very specifically look at tonality. You know, these are made up numbers, you can tell, because I put us at the top of everything. So just so you guys know, made up numbers. We look at it against things that we're interested in, like what's our share of voice in the data center world? What's our share of voice in the big data world? What's our share of voice for video? One of the things that happened a couple of years ago was that we knew video was going to be big. You know, we were the very first company to combine voice and data. To say, John Chambers said, that's important, it's got to go together. Well, he's now said it's important that voice, data, and video go together. Does anybody want to care to guess why that's so important for us? Exactly. It takes a pipe about this big to do voice and data. It takes the one about this big to do video. So the bigger that pipe is, the more we can make as a company. So video, though, is really catching on. But one of the things that as marketers we were wondering about is, what does video mean? I mean, what is a video market? Does that mean we're into YouTube, or what is that? So we turned our social media understanding onto that topic. And we said, go out into the great big wide universe and find out what video is. And what we came back with, which was interesting for us, is that video is not a market. Video is an adjective. Video analytics, video production, you know, video is an adjective. And so now what we're trying to do is, how do we take that and market our story in that particular marketplace? So that was helpful. We want to identify competitive discussions to change the perception. We look at, when we went into the cloud and the data center market a couple of years ago, cloud specifically, nobody was associating cloud with Cisco. You know, when you put cloud into the system and you did a search on Google, you got back HP and IBM and some other guys like Amazon, or you didn't get back Cisco. And so what we started to look at were some of the words that the customers were using with our competitors. You know, when you put cloud and IBM together, what did it look like? When you put cloud and HP together, what did it look like? And so we started to address for ourselves how we would, at least, you know, if you can't get recognized on your own, stand close to someone who's being recognized. So that was the point. If we could use some of the same terminologies, if we could be in the same places, we thought we could get the recognition. Our external influencer dashboard looks like this. We publish these every quarter for our top influencers, for our top analysts, and these are the reports that the executives look at when they say, are we making an impact? Now this particular report's interesting because you guys keep up to date in the press about Cisco. I think it's probably no surprise that a couple of quarters ago we missed 2 quarters in a row, and that caused a huge sort of downturn for Cisco. And in that, there was a lot of discussion about, you know, there have only been so many companies in the history of the world that have reached the size of 40 billion and made it to the next level of 80 or 100 billion. So we knew we had to do something different. But as we were going through that transition, it was very, very important to us that we listen to what people were saying about that transition. So this particular report was just us monitoring the world as to what they thought about the angst that we were going through trying to fix ourselves. I'm here to report that we're doing fine. We have now put 3 quarters together that are pretty good, and Cisco's turning around. That's a different story. And we've watched that story unfold with our influencers as well, how people catch on to the wording and go forward. So, we're combining traditional data with sentiment gives context. And in this case, this is something that from a marketer's point of view, we always wonder. I always call my team the Indiana Jones of Cisco. Because what we do is that we discover what customers do by virtue of the data artifacts that they leave with us, either in transactional data or how they interact with us in any way at all. But there's always that Margaret Mead kind of view that you need as to why they did that to begin with. And we only have one way today to go out and find out why they bought that product, or why they did that on the internet, or why they engaged with that particular partner. And that's usually through traditional market research. But what we're finding is that if we mine the social data right, we get a hint as to the why. And then with that hint as to the why, we're much more accurate in asking the right questions when we do the market research to understand the why. So we've started to combine that context of the social world with what we know for a fact about customers. And this is a good example. A couple of months ago, we wanted to do some transitional accounts. We wanted to go out and look at companies that were not number 1 in their industry, because we're assuming they belong to IBM already, or companies that were probably number 2 or 3, and we wanted to help them transform their business in some way, because we thought we had that capability. But we wanted a very small set of companies to look at, and we wanted to give the sales guys a leg up. So what we did is that we knew everything the companies had done with us. 496 of the Fortune 500 companies have purchased Cisco. So we kind of know the big companies, right? Now they may not have bought as much as they need to buy from us, but they've bought something. So we started analyzing all of the companies that we had, and we came up with a short list. From that short list, we then said, wow, wouldn't that be great if we turned our social engine onto the web and found out what the web was saying about our customers. Not what they're saying about us, but what the web says about Ing, for example. I don't even think that was one of them. But what they say about all of these different customers. And what we found is that the web sells a lot about our customers. It says, you know, that one of them was getting ready to install an online marketing system, completely redoing their entire operation. Sales guys didn't necessarily know that because they were selling networking. So this sort of gave them opened their eyes to a different view of that customer. And then we combined that information with all the stuff we knew about them already, how much they had bought from us, how big their wallets were, because we calculate how big their wallet is every year for every product that we sell. We know how much our customers will probably spend on that product in any given year. So we gave them all that information, and we combined all that data and sent them out to sell 9 accounts. The sales team thought that was the most miraculous thing they had ever seen. They're easily swayed, I must admit. So finally, what we're doing is that with that study that I showed you before, where we were looking at spikes on the web, we've started to look at an engagement score. I think in the introduction they mentioned that for the last 4 years, we have created 75,000 propensity to buy models a quarter. That's not individual models per company, that's 75,000 models. 14 technologies, 20 countries, 3 different views of segmentation of the customer, and we make those models available to the sales teams and to the marketing teams to prioritize accounts that they would like to go after, to prioritize technologies they would like to sell. Then, because we don't sell directly to the customer and we don't have that wonderful closed loop process that everyone dreams of, we developed a system for how we would measure how we measured our impact. That process that's what won us the award for database marketing a couple of years ago. But over the years, we've continued to monitor that number. Today, we measure only uplift, not what the sales guys would have sold already, because we identified an account that they had sold, 3 times before, and this just happened to be they were going to buy again. Anybody can do that. We only take credit for things that we see are uplifts over what they would have not necessarily known about had they not engaged with our score. That number today stands at $4.2 billion in uplift. And it started to get lots of attention, because I've discovered that nothing gets attention at Cisco unless it's at least $1 billion. So we had to sort of get it on up there. So we just keep taking that number on up to prove that we have value. Now, interestingly enough, what we would like to be able to do is that we know a lot of our customers engage on the internet with our website. We'd like to be able to see what their propensity to engage with us is at every point that they touch us. Do we have the answer yet? Absolutely not. But we have some information that we are using to help us figure out how when they are at one point in their process of purchasing, how likely are they to move to the next point. We're calling it our engagement scoring project, and maybe you'll invite me back next year and I'll tell you how it went.
Could you comment on or discuss what types of challenges or strategies you had with getting the salespeople to actually pay attention to the propensity model?
I don't have as much trouble with sales as I do with marketing. Which is really, sales, after you figure it out, after you explain to them, it's nothing more than your credit card statement and what people do, at Visa to make sure that you get the next big offer from Visa. The sales guys kind of got it. But the marketing guys, we haven't quite convinced them yet. If you can hit, with a propensity to buy model, you can go after 10 guys and make the same amount of money as you could if you're going after 1,000. But marketing often gets incented for the activity, not the result. And so the marketing people have been a little bit harder to convince. Does that make sense? So, what's next for us? All of this analytic stuff on the web and all of the things that we're doing to combine structured and unstructured data means that we have to change our analytic environment. And we first of all have to change our tools. We've got to get new versions of old tools because, quite frankly, I don't want to retrain a staff of 20 that knows how to use SAS. I would very much like just to make sure that SAS gets used for the web activity in a way that I can understand it and that they can utilize it. But we also have to use some new kind of tools. For our sentiment analysis, we use Symphony, we use Radian 6, we use Claire Bridge. We also have some Hadoop activities going on for the big data world where we have to move things around a lot. But for the most part, our tools are going to change. And that's important, simply because you have to train people on new tools. And when tools change, that's a big investment. You have to make sure they're the right ones and that you're going to get the right things from it. So we have to be much closer with the guys that manage our install base so far. We have to have skills. We have to have skills that are very comfortable with in-depth web and text mining. But more importantly, we have to have skills that are very comfortable with all kinds of data. Because if data is what's big, and data is voluminous and a variety and has a great velocity, we have to have people who understand that kind of data. And quite frankly, there are a couple of you guys out there from universities. How many of you have classes where you train people who understand about data? And I'm not talking about in the IT part of the world, because quite frankly, IT talks about systems, not always about data either. So, do you guys from the universities, do you have a data class? What university are you from?
Data from Kushner.
Okay.
It's not a data class, but it's quantitative analysis and we do make sure
Okay.
we play with data.
But you play with data. Quite frankly, in this world, though, managing that data source, because it's really simple when you're managing something that's very contained. But if it's moving fast and there's a lot of it, that's a different kind of skill set. And so you've got to find some people who understand that. We also, like I said, the hardest people to convince were marketers. We need marketers who have some experience with analytics, people who are not afraid of numbers. Now, what you don't know is I'm a journalist, but my dad is an applied mathematician. So my math came from the fact that he just browbeat me from the time I was 6 until I was 16 about how I needed to know math. So I passed my statistics class. Viewpoint. That's something we also have to have in an analytic environment. We have to make sure that people understand that volume, variety, and velocity of data matter, and that the company is ready to take that information and react to it. And we have to make sure that we collaborate with all different kinds of organizations. Right now, I'm in the throes of collaborating with the support teams, the customer operation team, as well as the social media team inside marketing. We all have to walk together to make sure that we collaborate and bring that information together for the good of the customer. Everyone talks about a 360-degree view of a customer in today's organization. Very few people actually create that. What we're trying to do is make sure that that actually happens. Finished.